All right, there we go. So got that little triangle shaved off. It is now nice and smooth, totally level with the other one. Got these very interesting machining marks from all the end mills, because when you take a flat nose end mill, which actually has a cupped bottom to it, the edges are actually further down than the center is. It makes this kind of almost like a little, little texture. It gives a very interesting texture to it. Anyway, so that is gone. That is now smooth. Yeah, sure enough, that little tiny little corner just chipped right off because it was only a couple of thousandths. Couldn't withstand staying intact, so it just snapped right off. So that's smooth as silk, which is nice. And there you go with that. That is the test piece. All that work, 3 freaking weeks worth of work to do 9 chevrons, which oddly enough is not enough. There are actually 10. There is a 10th one. I did not see that initially. It's actually tucked inside the pommel. There's only a bit of it showing, just the 2 pieces here, here and up here. Just a little section about yay big of it. It gets kind of blended into the pommel, but they are there. So, which means that on this piece, I'll take my little chip shield out the way. Toss that before. On this piece, I originally took and turned down about the last 2 inches down to 1 5/8 for the base, because I thought that the pommel was going to go there, but it turns out there's actually another chevron inside of it, which means I'm going to have to turn a 10th one on the titanium, and then I'm going to have to actually machine away probably about 2/3 of it, just so there's that one little piece right here, the top piece, and it's going to have to be at an angle to the head, because the pommel actually tapers down to a point, not quite a point, but it has a square head on it, but it comes down to about a little less than a half an inch. Anyway, yeah, so I'm gonna have to, on the titanium, I'm just gonna turn down just about half an inch of the end down to 1 3/8 to be able to be gripped in the little custom little collet gripper thing here. That worked out quite well. Pretty easy to tram out, and get all the run out of it. Yeah, that's it. So this is handle for Mjolnir, made out of aluminum, 6160. Probably never see the light of a hammer ever on it. It's a nice piece, worked out well, looks pretty. If I polished this and cleaned it up and lacquered it, it would probably look amazing, but it's not titanium. And that is my end goal, is that. Make a giant Mjolnir head out of titanium, then by golly, the handle is going to be made out of titanium too. So, as is the pommel, as is the top cap, as is everything. So, except for the hardware, the only thing that's not titanium will be the bolts. They will be surgical stainless steel, because, yeah, I can't find titanium bolts in that size. So, whatever. Anyway, that's it. Triangles are done. This piece now is going to come off of the milling machine. All of this is going to get pulled off. I need to get the titanium handle on the lathe over there, the old boy, the old 43. And once that's done, I'll turn all that down to size, do all of the do the taper right here on it, do the socket that goes into the head. This piece, of course, is a exact replica, internally anyway, of the inside of the head. I designed it that way so it actually plugs right into the part. The handle just plugs right into it. Bolts from the retaining bolt that actually is the actual retaining bolts for the hammerhead. I had to put a spacer in there because obviously that piece wasn't quite tall enough. That's fine. So that'll be the bolt that retains it. Big giant washer in there, holds it all in. So this whole piece will get pulled off. The titanium will get turned on the lathe, and then I'll have to pull all this off the mill and put the vise back on, tram that in, and I need to turn the little square flats that go right here, because there's actually a square socket on the end of this that interfaces the head, that aligns this pattern to the head. That way it'll be perfectly 90 degrees with the handle and can't rotate. That way Mr. Bolt there, if someone tries to spin the handle, it will not unspin because it has a square socket on it. Because why not? Even though that bolt will be exerting thousands and thousands of pounds of force on the handle, it would never twist anyway, but overkill never hurt anyone. except for us poor bastards who have to make it. But hey, it's my OCD. Anyway, there you go. There's Mr. Little windswiper motor. Those things work great for all kinds of projects. I've seen people use those things over the years for absolutely everything. They work fantastic. You can get all different speeds, different torque ratings. You want a big giant one that has super torque? Yeah, get a big giant bus one that's designed to throw back and forth 5-foot tall windshield blades and we'll have torque galore. I think that's just a regular one out of a passenger car. Mr. Rotary table worked well. This guy. This is actually number 2. The first one died catastrophically. It is right there. Rest in peace. You are dead. Internally anyway, it's totally gouged out because the version 1 of this guy, there was so much bind in it, it completely destroyed it. It chewed up the internal worm gear and it's pretty much just bound up to hell. It'll probably get dismantled for bits and pieces and parts. Who knows? I might make something out of it. Might rebuild it if I can find parts for it. Might not be worth it. They're only like $70 on eBay. So probably costs more money to repair it than it will to buy another one, which is why I bought that guy right there. Anyway, that is it. A little add-on I did because I noticed once I get all of the play of this guy was moving so freely that the backlash in the gears on this guy became a problem because the part could actually there was some chatter in there, and that was chatter is very bad for carbide end mills. They will shatter if you suddenly give them a sudden dinner that's twice as big as what they usually get. Any kind of harmonics in there, very bad for it, especially going to be on that tie. It's going to be really bad on that. So what I did was I made a leather brake. It rides up against the belts. It's actually pulling up against the main housing. You don't want to pull against the table because that would cause the additional bind on the sliders, and you want zeros on that. So that's actually, there's a spring hooked onto there, just mild tension pulling through, and it's simply clamped onto the back. Just looped around put a bolt through the dovetail there sticking out, and used a cant twist, useful little suckers, to loop it around and clamp it down. And that just gives me a little bit of drag on this, just a little bit of resistance, and as it pulls it around, the motor is pulling it this way, which is pulling against the spring, unloading it, and then if it tries to slip backwards, it's locking against the backside, so it's like a ratchet. It's like a friction ratchet, and that soaks up all the harmonics from any chatter coming from the rotary table, and that's worked out well. Not hearing anything weird when it's machining, so that's good. Yeah, so my that's the little limiting. Little travel limiter that worked out well. Simple design, nothing crazy. Something you already had on hand, just already had it, repurposed it into that. Obviously, its original purpose as a mill stop, you can simply go right back to that. Put the speed handle back on it. Put the original stainless steel pin in there. Obviously, the original pin was much longer to give yourself more reach. I did not need reach. I needed to get up inside there and just make a stop, which it did just fine. Mr. Oiled little sliders. These guys, that one, 2 more in the back, identical, absolutely identical. They worked fantastic. This thing has slides back and forth like it's on melted butter, or well, like whey oil actually, because that's what I put in the cups. That worked fantastically as well. Mr. Wheel. Yeah. Total mess. Now time to clean up my milling machine again. It's one of the things you never see on those machining YouTube channels. You don't see all the hours and hours and hours of vacuuming, sweeping, and oh dear God, the amount of cleanup that milling machines and lathes generate, the amount of swarf. Just for reference, that trash can has a 55-gallon trash can, I think. That is titanium. That is a whole lot of titanium. That is literally 50 gallons of titanium swarf off of making the hammerhead and the handle. There's a couple of random items in top, but the majority of that, 99% of that, is swarf. And the floor is still a complete mess. But if you look at it, it's brown. The reason it's brown, all the brass from making these dangum things. Dear God, it turned the entire table Looked like it was just covered in gold glitter. It looked really pretty, but it's a mess to clean up. But at least it's brass, so it doesn't really mess up too many. If it gets into things, brass doesn't. Brass on cast iron is not terrible, which is actually why I made them out of that. So anyway, I am rambling. Who knows? If I ever upload this, hi. Anyway, hello. You guys have a wonderful day. Bye.